I think 4 years apart. This will be the third 4 years apart. Because we went 07 to 08, then 11 to 12, and then 15 to 16. So they've started to go in 4-year increments instead of 3.
But the window of the drawdown, is that more fluid?
Well, actually, the last drawdown 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago, it was a very docile hurricane season. The consumptive use permit we had from Water Management District said we could start the water down no earlier than October 1st. Looked like a very low probability of tropical systems affecting us, so we started the water down from the 18-foot level right around October 1st and started it down 2 weeks earlier than typically had been done. We had a warm winter that winter, and then when we raised it back up, the adverse side effect I saw was tussocks, several good-sized tussocks popping up around the Orange Creek, the mouth of Orange Creek, and floating around and potentially blocking navigation, major navigation blockages. And that's when I started talking to FWC about possibly getting a cookie cutter out there to cut that stuff up, to chop it up, to take it out of the system. And then the whole issue of a dredge and fill permit came up, and then the tussocks seemed to basically settle in, take root, and now one of them's got a bird rookery on it right outside the mouth of the Orange Creek boat ramp. So we didn't do anything, and it worked out okay. But I would not, in my experience, to lower the water that early again, just because I think you have it down for that long, you increase the potential of having more of those tussocks pop up and causing problems. Yes, sir.
I want to ask a question then, whether it's related to the drawdown or not, I'm not sure, but following Hurricane Irma and tropical storms, we had really high water, really turbid water, and we've lost most of the eelgrass, the Ballast area in the lower St. Johns River. So manatees seek a warm water source, but they also need food. Are they trying to go upstream to any submerged vegetation, and does the drawdown affect that at all? Would open areas or restrict the manatees from any areas for feeding?
We saw this spring, early this spring, when there seemed to be a lack of submerged plants from, like I said earlier, 2+ years of dark water, where you couldn't see if there were submerged plants, what they were. We saw manatees coming into the reservoir and eating rafts of, what were they? It was pennywort. They were coming up underneath. There was actually a little floating piece of it in the middle of the lock one day when I went there in the morning, and there were 2 or 3 manatees eating the roots underneath the water, and there was also about a 6 or 8 foot alligator right there next to them that just kind of, they ignored each other. And the manatees were sitting there pulling on the bottom of the pennywort from underwater and eating it. And I've had fishing guides out there tell me they saw a lot of that this spring, where there seemed to be a lack of food from the lack of sunlight getting to the submerged plants. So they were coming into the reservoir and eating a lot of the floating plants, the pennywort, and other things that were out there. Now, I used to manage a spring on the Swanee River earlier in my career in the mid-90s, Banning Springs, and I used to, part of my job, they told me, go swim with the manatees, take pictures of them. I'm like, okay, tough job. So I did, and I would be underwater in a first magnitude spring, Banning Springs on the Swanee River, and right at the boil, and there's eelgrass here, and there's hydrilla here, and every manatee I ever watched ate hydrilla every time. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Thank you first for your knowledge and your passion for it and all your years. Can you speak to the hydrology of the river, the up and downs on one end, and what's happening all on the other end? And I know there's a lot of springs. What proportion of springs related to rainwater and loading this? And lastly, most important, I was curious on acreage. Do you do studies on, if it's 18 feet high, how much is flooded in acreage, 11 feet high? And do you think that there is a place that this can function at a moderate level, like 8 feet high, and how that would affect the environment in terms of having it 18 to 8 feet high?
That's a pretty complex question. That's about 8 questions rolled in that one thing. So I'm not a hydrologist, I'm not a geohydrologist or anything like that. I got my degree in Parks and Recreation, but I haven't managed and worked around this system for 20-some years, so, that's why I know it, to the extent I can.
Thank you.
I mean, I don't know, I know many people in this room know the Ocklawaha River starts down in the Green Swamp in Lake Apopka, and then there's 3 sets of locks and dams managed by the Water Management District that were part of a flood control project that the Corps did back, I believe, in the 50s. And then, and that's Lake Griffin, you know, Moss Bluff, that's got Lake Griffin, the Harris Chain of Lakes down around Leesburg and all that. And so those are all the upper Ocklawaha and dam control. And then once you get to Moss Bluff, that's the last one until you get to Rodman Reservoir. But you have the biggest tributary of the Ocklawaha is Silver Spring, Silver River. And then that meets right there just upstream from State Road 40. So on the south side, because it flows from south to north, the Ocklawaha does. And then, you know, it turns and it's the biggest tributary of the St. Johns River. So what else do you want to know? I know the different levels of acreage of area coverage. So at 18 feet, and these are based on old Corps bathymetry data. At 18 feet, the reservoir is 9,200 acres, based on that data from the Corps, 1977. At 11 feet, when it's drawn down, it's 4,300 acres.
Say those numbers again, please, Mickey.
Okay, 18 feet, and I can, you know, if you want me to email you this sheet that has all this in more detail, we can do that. I've got my cards over there. Be happy to email you this whole sheet that
But
has.
at 18, it was 92, and at 8, it's 43.
No, at 11 feet, the drawdown level, the lowest drawdown level is 4,300.
Okay.
Is that the lowest drawdown level, 11?
That's the lowest that's been done up to this point.
If the dam wasn't there, would it be at 11?
No, it would be at 4 was the historic river level. If the dam was removed, 4 was, and that's an average, you know, because you can have high flow, there's a lot of rain, there's a big storm, it comes up a foot or two.
But you have no data for 4 feet
As far as
acreage.
for the river or?
For the whole reservoir.
Well, it would be the river, so, I mean, I estimated one time from Eureka to the dam, if you basically remove the river, and again, this is my rough estimate, it was about 200 acres. If the river was in its banks and you were at, say, average flows, and that's if the river channel was 100 feet wide, which is a rough estimate, knowing what the river looks like up between State Road 40 and Eureka. So 200 acres versus 8,000 or 9,000 at average level. We have, I know we've been getting into this Q&A for me a lot. Do you all want to stand up and speak if you've got, you know, if you want to speak, or do you want to keep doing the Q&A? All right, yes, sir.
I wonder, how many springs are actually inundated by the reservoir?
20 is the best estimate, or
20
most,
springs.
you know, the number you keep seeing, yeah. And we go out and look at a lot of them towards the end of the drawdown when stuff's dried up. The vast majority of them are 3rd magnitude springs, which is less than 10 cubic feet per second. And there's at least one Blue Spring, which is the largest, is a little over 10 cubic feet per second. It's a lower flow 2nd magnitude spring. A 1st magnitude spring is over 100 cubic feet per second, and that's springs like Silver Springs, Rainbow Springs, and there's 33 of those, I believe, in the state. Sometimes they fluctuate. I know.
In the Rodman area.
I'm sorry?
In the Rodman Reservoir area.
Yeah, there's 20 small springs there, yeah. With Blue being the largest, barely 2nd magnitude. I'm
So
sorry.
when you draw down, do they reappear?
It depends. Some of them depends on what the water clarity is, how much rainfall we've been getting, turbidity, what the flows are coming from the upper Ocklawaha, because that water is usually more turbid and less clear, certainly than the Silver River water. If it's a drier period and you got a lot of Silver River water, then you can see some of them better. Sometimes they're covered up with aquatic vegetation. Blue Spring, the largest of those, that's on the north bank of the reservoir. Oh no, wait, I'm sorry, south bank of the reservoir, it's right in there. Blue Spring is still probably, with the reservoir at 11 feet, it's probably 20 feet underwater, the boil of it. I've seen it maybe once or twice on a water is clear and you've got the sun straight overhead at noontime, you can see a little bit of the boil on top of the water, and you can see the sand, the boil where the water's coming out, and the sand kind of, milling around there a little bit. But I've only been able to observe it a couple of times.
But you still keep the level artificially high, so all those springs across from Kenwood, that whole cluster of springs there, you really can't see them. I mean, you can see catfish boil, but if the water was to its natural level, you would see those a lot better.
And I'm sure if the reservoir wasn't there and it was,
Still flow.
if it was at 4 feet, yeah. And then there's also hypothesis that when the reservoir's up at the 18 to 20 foot level, at times the potentiometric head is actually recharging groundwater and forcing water to go backwards where some of those low flow springs are, where it could be potentially doing recharge or making them backflow depending on your semantics and your perspective on all this.
Just for clarity,
Yes.
you're saying when the water's high, springs are probably not flowing because of the head pressure?
I think it depends. There's a lot of variables in there. What's the groundwater levels, what's the groundwater pressure, and then what the reservoir level is as far as how much head pressure it's putting on them.
But the idea that possibly you're recharging
Yeah.
the aquifer is an interesting item.
Yes.
I've been to several meetings in the county where we get called a poor county all the time, and we're always looking for new ways to bring in revenue and visitors and get something going. People are always saying we need a splash pad, we need stuff for the kids to do. And there's a guy in here I know that used to go see those springs across from go to Blue Springs and spring hop along there before they called it spring hopping. And I think if I hope that the commissioners, or any of the county managers will go out, Chamber of Commerce, during the drawdown, and take a look and see all those people, because it's like tournament numbers there at Kenwood. There's 50, 60 people out or more on a Wednesday. And see all the people out there enjoying it. There's people, a couple old guys fishing, every other band out there. There's tons of people fishing. It's not like you would lose fishing. People out there are fishing down south of Eureka, and they're fishing down south of the spillway in the river. And then we'd have springs, and we'd have more wildlife. I mean, there's so many more, a lot more bank fishing for people that don't have boats. So I hope the commissioners will go out there and see how many people are out there during the drawdown, because there's a lot. Like we were saying, you can't keep the garbage cans empty because there's so many people out there. So I just hope they'll take the opportunity to go out there, because I know there's a few commissioners here, and take a look and see how people are really enjoying it. There's still people fishing. You could still have tournaments out there. I know we have the restrictions because of the drawdown and they're concentrated and you don't want to pull all the big ones out, but I hope that they'll go take a look. There's more to it than fishing.
It's amazing.
Yes, ma'am.
Just build on what Karen just mentioned, a few years ago, several conservation groups in Florida went together to fund a study done by the University of Florida to see what the economic impact would be if they did restore the Ocklawaha River. And it was more than twice the positive impact, economic impact, with the river restored from fishing and use of the banks that would be there that aren't there now. And so, again, that would be a very viable point. You mentioned earlier that one of the legislators said, nothing shall be done until we have an economic study. Well, there is now an economic study.
That one didn't look at the extended drawdown versus.
Well, that would be very extended.
Yeah.
It would be permanently extended.
So I wanted to focus on two things. One thing I'm hearing in this room, I think we need to think about this. There's a lot more that we agree on related to the drawdown, or whether we're talking restoration. I think everybody in this room would say they want the water quality to improve. I think everybody in this room would say they want reduced use of herbicides, right? That everybody in this room, I think, would say we want less invasive aquatic plants, am I right? I think everybody in this room would say they want better fishing, right? I think everybody in this room would say they want a better economy okay? So if we could focus, and I'm so glad you're doing this drawdown. Thank you for doing that. I'm glad you're doing it at the lower level. But I would hope that the dialogue starts to go more towards what we agree on, because I'm from Marion County. I've worked in Palatka. I love these communities, and we're selling ourselves short, I think, by not coming together and doing something together that's positive. When you described what happens during the drawdown, Mickey, you were almost effervescent, talking about the more fish, the better birds, and all those things. And it hurts to hear that people, well, they don't want to do. I would advocate for an extended drawdown, and I know that's not going to happen. But I do think part of the fear of doing partial restoration is the fear of what that would look like. An extended drawdown would help the health of the river immensely. And there's, I won't go through them, but the Springs Institute provided me with 12 bullet lists of what that would do, ecologically, but also economically. So I think taking a 20-year study or whatever of what the regime should be, I don't think that's a good answer. I think we need to revisit that. And I would think an extended drawdown might give us time to see what would this look like long term. But it would also make for a healthier river. So I would advocate for a long-term drawdown.
I appreciate that. Well, I told people to go look at, if you want to know what restoration would look like 50 years later, is go look at Eureka, because that area was totally denuded of vegetation when they built the lock and dam there. You go look at that, and that's what it would look like in 50 years if you do restoration. So, it's a young floodplain forest is basically what you've got.
Yeah, the same thing in Sharpsburg Bridge. That was a bare bank up in there when they had the drag lines in. And now it looks like it's a 100-year-old forest. I mean, the trees are probably, approaching 100 feet tall.
Just really quickly, we were talking about whether the springs flow more or less during the drawdown, what's appreciable and what's measurable. Water Management District data dating from 1999 to 2016 during times of full reservoir and times of drawdown do support that the springs flow at much greater intensity, even though they're small springs, because drawdown does occur. So it is an appreciable number, and you can see it. Whether you visibly can see it or not, you can actually measure it. For example, when the reservoir was full September 1st, 2015, there was 0 cubic feet per second flowing from Marion Blue. And December 11th, 2015, when the reservoir drawdown was in its initial stages, it was 6.1 cubic feet, and then in February, it was 5.5 feet. So it almost was half of its flow prior to the reservoir. So
and you would expect that.
You would expect
10
that,
feet
yes.
of water sitting on top,
Absolutely.
or 8 or 10 feet of water sitting on top of a small spring, you would expect that.
I misunderstood.
Definitely
I thought we said there was no measurable data changes on that. There is measurable data. on
They have
small
done some
springs.
measurements on that.
Yeah.
They go out there and look at it at times during some of the drawdowns,
Yeah.
to my knowledge.
Definitely.
Okay. Anybody else? Do we have people who have speaker cards, or people who want to get up and speak? Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, some of the elected legislators, when we talk to them, show us the economics. So that is what the University of Florida study was all about, was to answer